Hey, everybody, welcome to That Expert Show, where you help run the show. I'm Anna Canzano. We are talking today about college scholarships, and this is such an important topic considering the cost of going to college has gone up by triple digits in terms of percentages just over the last couple of decades. So if you've got somebody who you think this episode can benefit, give us a retweet, give us a share wherever you're watching this right now. I'm sure that somebody that you know could be helped by this episode. A lot of folks are in this same boat with kids that are headed to college and trying to figure out how they can afford this. I know that academic merit scholarships were the only way that I was able to attend college, along with some financial aid. We've got a fantastic expert lined up today. We actually spoke with her fairly recently about financial aid, and we talked so extensively about that we ran out of time to talk about scholarships. So we broke this up into 2 episodes, and we have invited her to come back with us. Joining us live from Massachusetts is Shannon Vasconcelos with College Coach. Shannon, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Anna. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, because we realized that there was a whole nother episode that we could tackle on this topic alone, and I thought you were so amazing talking about financial aid. So let's begin by talking about scholarships and maybe some of the misconceptions that people have about them, and where the best place is to look for them.
Yeah, so I think the biggest misconception about scholarships is that applying for scholarships means going online, applying for every scholarship under the sun, from private organizations. You will sometimes hear it said, thousands of scholarships go unclaimed every year, and that is just not the case. The private scholarships search, though I think it's worth doing, it tends to make up a minimal piece of the college payment puzzle. The best source of scholarships is really the colleges themselves, the merit scholarships from the universities. And that's where you can really be strategic about where you apply to maximize your chances of winning some scholarships.
So that information would be available directly through the school's website or their financial aid office. What's the best place to find that information?
Yeah, it can be tricky. I would say yes, the best source of information does tend to be the school websites. So that would be one source that I would absolutely explore. You will find when you start looking at the scholarship page of a bunch of different schools' websites, they should all have some scholarship page that offers some information about their scholarships. But once you've looked at a number of schools, you will learn that some schools are very, very upfront and very specific about their scholarship criteria, X GPA and Y SAT score equals this scholarship amount. And those are certainly the most helpful websites. You will also find, though, some schools' websites do not provide very specific information. They'll say, we offer scholarships for academically talented students, and don't give a whole lot more information than that. They don't really explain what that means to them. So while I would certainly recommend checking out the school's website, seeing what information you can glean there, sometimes you have to look beyond the school's website to try to figure out where you are most likely to be offered scholarships. And I would recommend one really good resource is the College Board's website called bigfuture.org. And on that website, you can kind of look up the name of any school you're thinking about, and it will return a page with lots of kind of quick facts about the school, including some stats like average GPAs and average SAT and ACT scores for the incoming class. And that can be a really good source of information for you when trying to determine your chances of receiving a merit scholarship at any given school. We as students and parents tend to look at scholarships like a reward. Congratulations on this job well done in high school. We'd like to offer you this $5,000 scholarship. From a college's perspective, scholarships aren't really a reward. At least that's not the reason they're offering them to you. From the college's perspective, they're a recruitment tool. So that's how I always try to encourage families to think about scholarships. Think about them from the college's perspective. They're a recruitment tool. Not every college actually offers merit scholarships, so we can talk a little bit about that. But for colleges that do have merit scholarships, which is most of them, they have, a limited pot of scholarship money, and they have to decide who they're going to give it to. And so they're going to offer that scholarship money to the students who stand out the most in their applicant pool, the ones that they really want to recruit. So that's what you want to think about as a student or a parent trying to maximize your merit scholarships. You want to make sure that you are a standout student at the schools you're applying to, that you are above average somehow in terms of your grades, your test scores. Those are the easiest things to measure. There are other ways you may stand out. But think about that. You could be like a straight A student, but if you only applied to Harvard and Stanford and Yale, where everyone is a straight A student, you don't stand out in that applicant pool, and you are not going to receive merit scholarship offers. But you could be even more like a solid B student, and if you apply to some colleges where the average is like a C, you as a B student look very good in that school's applicant pool, and you are likely to see some nice scholarship offers. So I'd say that's the biggest thing to think about when trying to maximize your scholarships. Apply to, at least a couple schools where you're going to be sort of overqualified, what you might consider more like the safety schools on your list. Those are the schools that are really going to want you. They will likely throw some money at you to try to get you there. So that's the biggest thing to think about.
That's interesting. And then, so when you're talking about, because you mentioned the GPAs and the SAT scores, are there minimal GPAs and minimal SAT scores that people should consider when it comes to applying for these merit scholarships? Because is there a threshold at which a student's chances of getting any kind of merit scholarship is simply unreasonable?
Yeah, there isn't any particular threshold I can point to, because it so much depends on the individual school. At College Coach, we do a podcast that, in case people want to listen, it's called Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. But we joke about on that podcast that the most common answer to any of the questions that are asked is it depends, because so much depends on the different schools. Every school is going to have different scholarship. You can imagine if you're, a C and D student with very low test scores, there aren't going to be a tremendous amount of colleges, dying to have you and throwing scholarship money at you. The better you do in school, the more colleges are going to be in that safety school category for you. So that's kind of the advice for, students early on in high school. Do as well in high school as possible, and that will just open up. There will be more colleges willing to offer you scholarship money. But even if you're not a straight A student, that doesn't mean you won't get scholarships. It just means that your options are going to be more limited, and there are going to be less schools that fall into that safety school category for you, but there will likely still be some schools.
Julie on Facebook is saying that her kids have repeatedly tried for scholarships. They have good grades and still have never gotten one. She says her son got a baseball scholarship, but other than that, nothing. It's not easy, and college is so expensive. So without knowing more, can you help Julie diagnose what's going on there?
Yeah, I would guess when Julie's saying her kids have been unsuccessful winning scholarships is that she is thinking about scholarships as going online, likely, and applying for a bunch of different scholarships from outside organizations other than the schools. She mentioned that the one scholarship they did get was a baseball scholarship from a school who, because her son was a talented baseball player and was among the most talented baseball players applying to this school, they offered him a scholarship because they wanted to recruit him. The scholarships that you find online in the kind of financial aid world, we tend to call them private scholarships or outside scholarships, basically scholarships from anyone other than the colleges. Those are very, very hard to come by in today's world. Nowadays, because of the internet, where every scholarship is available, at your fingertip, you have so much more competition to win any given scholarship than you or I would have had, Anna, when we were applying to college and applying to scholarships when the internet, I think you're about the same age as me, was like in its infancy.
Right.
And most scholarships were not online at that point. It was actually kind of hard to track down scholarships.
Yeah.
We were, maybe taking a book out of the library that listed scholarships, and people would rip pages out of the book so nobody else would apply to the scholarships they were applying to. And you were actually working in snail mail.
Yeah.
At that point, there were scholarships that went unclaimed because they got no qualified applicants, because they were hard to track down. Nowadays, with the internet, it has become almost too easy to find scholarships where everyone are finding all these same scholarships online. You just have a lot of competition. So it happens all the time that I talk to families who say, like Julie did, my kids applied for dozens and dozens of scholarships and didn't get any money out of it. So what I would recommend to folks is, number one, focus on the colleges where you're applying to. That is really the best source of scholarship money, where you can be strategic to maximize your chances of getting the most scholarship money. I think some of those private scholarships are worth applying for. Every little bit certainly helps. But you probably want to be selective in terms of the scholarships, the private scholarships that you choose to pursue. Don't waste tons of time and energy applying for dozens and dozens of scholarships that, aren't a perfect match for your child. When you read the description, oh, they meet these qualifications, but not these other ones. Well, there's probably 100 kids applying that it is a perfect match for. So skip that one and devote, the limited time and energy that your child has to put into these applications. Devote it towards scholarships that they stand a decent chance of winning. So the ones that maybe have a little bit more specific criteria, if there's a scholarship that you just have to be a good student, that's going to apply to thousands of students. But a scholarship where you have to be a left-handed oboe player, that's going to apply to less people. If you actually are a left-handed oboe player, you stand a good shot of winning. So focus in on the ones that are more specific, where you meet the criteria very well, that are a little more unusual. Not everybody else meets the criteria. I would also definitely recommend focusing on local community-based scholarships, which are usually not for huge amounts of money. But again, every little bit helps, and you just stand a much better shot of winning when the applicant pool is restricted to just your town or just your high school, as opposed to a big national scholarship where you're competing with thousands of kids all across the country. It's just going to be very hard to pull in that scholarship.
Yeah, I remember one of the most important scholarships I got in attending Pepperdine was from a local Rotary Club. And in fact, it was $1,000, but it was $1,000. It might have been more, that they were renewing each year that I was in college. So it wasn't just a one-time thing. I think a lot of people are very focused on getting scholarships for that first year. And guess what? The normal college run is a 4-year experience.
4-year commitment. I know.
And so you've got to figure out how to help fund the other 3 years.
Exactly. And that's actually something for folks that already have college students who are watching to think about, or college students who are watching. You're absolutely right, Anna, that so many people focus on applying for scholarships for that first year of college and never think to apply for scholarships again after that. There are some scholarships out there specifically for continuing college students. And those are ones that get fewer applications, that, again, you stand a better shot of winning because there aren't thousands and thousands of students applying for them. So it's something to think about throughout, before college, certainly, and then during your 4 years of college. Continue to pursue scholarships. Look for scholarships from Based on, once you've declared a major, you have a career field in mind. Think about, professional associations affiliated with that career field that may offer some scholarship funding. Check in with your major department, on campus. See if they have any departmental scholarships that they might be willing to offer you. So kind of continue the search throughout college, because most people forget about it. Once they've been accepted to college, they paid the bill for that freshman year. They don't think about it again, but it's something to keep pursuing throughout college.
Should it cost you anything to apply?
No.
Okay, so that's a red flag. I mean, I'm sure there's, yeah.
I will say it should almost never cost you anything to apply for scholarships. If you run into scholarship sites that are charging you money, run far, far away.
Okay.
You should never have to give a credit card number, bank account number to apply for scholarships. There are free searches you can do on your own. Scholarships.com is a great website to search for scholarship, and it's free. Any legitimate scholarship search site will be free. I will tell you the only very, very limited exception to the never having to pay rule is actually the professional association scholarships that I mentioned. Occasionally, a professional association will have a scholarship, but it's only open to members of that association, and you have to pay like a $30 membership fee, something like that.
Right.
And in that instance, that may be one instance where you might have to pay to be considered for a scholarship, and you'll have to consider if that membership fee is worth it to you, acknowledging, it's going to be very competitive to win that scholarship. Chances are you won't win it. Is that membership fee still going to be worth it to you? Are there other things you get out of that membership and professional, networking opportunities or what have you that may make that membership fee worth it? But other than that, you really shouldn't have to pay at all for scholarships.
When it comes to applying for the scholarship itself, most of the time it really does come down to that essay. And what advice do you have in terms of writing, a winning essay? And does it involve getting vulnerable and, really talking about who you are and what experiences you have in life versus trying to write what you think a scholarship essay should sound like?
Right. You should always be authentic, both in your admissions application essay for college, as well as any scholarship essays that you have to write. I will say, so we talked about from the college's perspective how scholarships are a recruitment tool, and they're offering them to try to kind of influence your behavior, specifically, where you're going to enroll in school. That's why they're offering you a scholarship. Private organizations as well are offering scholarships very often to influence your behavior. So think about whoever is offering this scholarship, whatever organization it is, what is it that they want? And make sure that your essay speaks to the priorities of that organization. I'm trying to think of an example. The association, I don't know their official name, of CPAs offers a scholarship to students who are planning on becoming CPAs. So you don't want to talk about in your application, and in fact, actually part of when you win this scholarship, they actually make you promote the CPA designation on your campus.
Sure.
So they're making it kind of very clear what they want out of this scholarship. They want more smart, ambitious students going into the CPA profession. So you don't want to write in your essay to them about how this business degree you're getting is going to help you in all sorts of aspects like marketing and being an entrepreneur. No, you want to tell them how you want to be a CPA and what a great field that is and what you love about it.
Yeah.
So you think about who you're applying to, what their priorities are, and make sure that your application is speaking to those priorities.
You got to understand the audience, one of the key things when it comes to life in general. Carrie, thanks for watching live on Facebook. She's saying that high school students have access to online tools through their schools to search for local and nationwide scholarships based on their personal profiles. So their high school career counseling office, is that a good place to start?
Yes, 100%. The school counseling office at your high school is 100% where I would start in thinking about actually kind of a few different ways to get scholarships. Certainly, the local scholarships from local community organizations, the local businesses and Rotary clubs and Elks Lodges and places like that. The school counseling office will maintain a list of those scholarships. They'll usually upload them to your school's college planning software. Naviance is the biggest one that a lot of high school students have access to. So you will likely find a list of scholarships within Naviance if your school uses that program. There are other programs out there that offer similar tools. Actually, that Naviance program can also help you in terms of pinpointing colleges where you might be a good candidate for a merit scholarship. They have, and it may make little sense to you or folks who haven't used Naviance, but they have part of their program is scattergrams, where they show you kind of the profiles of students from your high school who have been accepted or rejected at various schools. You can look at a school's scattergram and see how students from your high school, based on their academic profile, have fared at that school. Have they gotten in or not? So you can kind of see there how you compare to other students from your high school who have applied to, these schools that are of interest to you. And if you are, well below the academic profile of students they're accepting, you know that, you may not get in, and you're almost certainly not going to be offered a recruitment scholarship. But if you are, on the high end of the profile, that's when you can expect that you might see some decent scholarship offers.
And I would assume too that, like, based on what kind of activities you are involved in, if you're in theater, if you're in dance, if you're in band, and you're in high school, you should be contacting potentially, or at least looking at the colleges where they have these activities and checking to see if there are scholarships available there. Do you want to talk about that in addition to athletic scholarships? Because everybody knows, those NCAA Division I, Tier 1 scholarships in terms of athletics or other activities are really hard to get. But then, as we saw and heard about in the admissions scandal, unfortunately, there are these rather obscure, more obscure athletic activities that there are scholarships available for as well.
There are, though I will say that the athletic scholarships, I think, is it's kind of a smaller pool of money than I think many people imagine. Like, every parent whose kid does pretty well at youth soccer has that dream of that, full tuition sports scholarship. The sports scholarships, they can be an avenue to get some money. And again, you need to stand out at the schools you're applying to for that particular sport. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the easiest sports to figure that out at for are kind of the individual sports that are like timed, like track and field or swimming. You can go to a school's athletic page and see, the swim times in these different races for that school's team. And, again, how do you fare there? If your, times are slower than everyone on their team, you're not going to see much of a scholarship. Right. But if you're among the fastest, that is a school that would be very interested in you and may offer you some scholarship money. Though I will say, just so folks know, it is only Division I and II sports or schools with those sports that are allowed to offer any athletic scholarship whatsoever. If you're looking at the Division III level, they do not offer athletic scholarships at all. So you really have to be at kind of that top level in your sport in order to receive scholarship funding. And kind of the real big money, like the full scholarships that you hear about, tend to be most focused in like the money-making sports, the football and the men's basketball, more than some of the more obscure sports where you might see some scholarship money, but generally not the huge amounts that you may first envision.
Got it. Okay, so there may be scholarship money available, but it would be much more of like a partial scholarship than covering the full
Exactly.
cost of
Right.
attending school for 4 years.
Exactly right.
Interesting. There is,
Yeah. And oh, and you had mentioned like arts and music and
yeah,
things like that. Yeah, there are lots of reasons why you could stand out at any given school. And usually what I talk about the most is the academics and the grades and test scores, because that's the most easily measurable,
yeah.
and has the most kind of public information out there. You can very easily see how you compare academically at a given school. But there are definitely scholarships out there for art and music and theater and all of those other things. It's just a little bit harder to pinpoint. You don't know if any given school is looking for, a saxophone player in their marching band this year. They just had all their saxophone players graduate. Now they're in desperate need of saxophone players. And that in that year, they might be very willing to offer scholarship money to saxophone players out there. But then, if their marching band is full of saxophone players who are all freshmen, who are going to be sticking around for a while, they don't really need any saxophone players, the next year.
Yeah.
So that part of it is harder to tell. Very often for, music and theater and art, there's portfolios or auditions, and it's a much more subjective process. So you don't know for sure. Certainly, if you have a strong interest in a certain activity and you plan on continuing in college, you want to network, as much as you can and talk to the orchestra director, and people like that who are in charge of the program at the schools you're thinking about, as they may be able to, put in a good word for you, may be able to help send some scholarship money your way. So networking can help, but it's harder to pinpoint in advance where you're most likely to qualify for scholarship funding.
Interesting. And it might be tougher to network as well, depending on the size of the school, but it's worth a try. Maya on Facebook is saying she can't wait to see this episode. As a married adult college student, she qualifies for no financial aid, and the college itself hasn't been very helpful in other aid sources. Thank you in advance for whatever advice you might offer to Maya.
Yeah, so there are scholarships out there specifically for adult continuing students. So if you go to like scholarships.com search site, they have a category, a listing of scholarships there for adult students. Or you could, do some basic web searches. When you do your web searching for scholarships, what you want to avoid is, just typing the word scholarship into the search box, and you're going to get millions and millions of results. You want to focus it in more. So you can do a search for adult learner scholarship or adult student scholarship, things like that. Kind of focus in on kind of your characteristics that might make you a little bit unique. And it could be being an adult student. It could be, you are a woman interested in engineering. It could be you are a student who is vegetarian. You are a student being treated for acne. There are literally scholarships for all of these things. So just as you're searching for scholarships, try and be kind of specific and think about what makes you unique and what's going to cut a lot of the other students out of the applicant pool.
There's a scholarship for a student that's being treated for acne?
There is. There's actually multiple of them. I can see all the high school students desperately searking right now. We may have let the cat out of the bag. They might get a lot of applications now, but there is, yeah.
Wow.
There's from pharmaceutical companies who make acne medication. So again, you're thinking, these different companies and organizations that offer scholarships, thinking about why they're offering them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. We will include all of your information in the tip sheet that we create for this episode, to be sure. You've referenced a couple of resources along the way that we want to be able to point people toward as well. A Santa on Twitter would like to hear some information on how one can properly vet the college coaches that we are seeing these days. We've heard many a bad story about these not being legitimate services and that they provide very little in true value to a motivated student and a supportive family. What say you about that?
Yeah, so we've certainly seen in the news some very bad actors in the college consulting world.
Yeah.
Now, what we have seen is, not the majority of college consultants out there, one kind of rogue criminal who calls himself a college consultant. But yeah, I think it is very important to vet if you're thinking about hiring a college coach. Vetting them very carefully and seeing what they have to offer you. I would say the most important factor that I would look for if thinking about hiring a college consultant is their experience. Have they actually worked in college admissions office, or if you're thinking about a finance consultant, in a college financial aid office? You will be shocked at the high percentage of companies in the college consulting world that don't have one employee who has ever worked in college admissions. So you want to hire a consultant that has admissions, that has experience making the decisions in college admissions offices. My company, Bright Horizons College Coach, all of our consultants are very highly vetted and have tremendous amounts of experience working in admissions offices at colleges across the country, as well as we also have, like me, finance consultants who worked in financial aid offices across the country. There are a tremendous number of companies that don't have anyone who has ever worked in a college admissions or financial aid office that considers themselves an expert, maybe because they got into a selective school 20 years ago, right, or their child got into a selective school and they think they know what did it, perhaps. But in fact, unless you are in those offices making those decisions, you have no idea about why you got in or your child got in as opposed to other students. So that's the most important factor I would look for. Folks who have experience in the college admissions and finance world. The other thing I would be wary of is anyone making any guarantees that they can get you. They guarantee they'll get you into an Ivy League college, something like that. On the finance side, we see finance consultants guaranteeing you that they will get you a certain amount of money. There are absolutely no guarantees in this very, very competitive college landscape. If somebody tells you they're guaranteeing you anything, run in the other direction because they are not an ethical actor in this process. So look for folks with experience. Personally, I have found, to toot my own company's horn, having multiple consultants within the company who have experience at a lot of different colleges. Yeah. There are consultants out there that are, a one-man show who might have no experience or maybe experience at one college, and they might know how things work at that college. But I have a team of about 40 colleagues who have all worked in various admissions and financial aid offices all across the country. So if a question comes, it's happened multiple times this week. I got a question specifically about the process at Northeastern. Yeah. And I had a quick chat with my colleague who worked at Northeastern, and another question came in about Stanford. And I didn't work at Stanford, but I had a quick chat with my colleague who worked at Stanford. Right. So having experience at multiple colleges, I also think is very helpful.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for your insight into this world. Sounds like there's still a lot to learn, and that it is an ever-changing landscape. I appreciate your time.
Oh, you're so welcome. Happy to help as much as I can, and good luck to all your viewers.
Yeah, they need it. Shannon, thank you. And thank you for joining us for this episode of That Expert Show. As I mentioned, we'll always create a tip sheet that you can get at thatexpertshow.com after the episode. You can also go back and watch the episode, the replays of it on our accounts on Twitter at That Expert Show, at That Expert Show on Instagram with IGTV, and of course on Facebook at Anna Canzano. You can watch the YouTube channel version of the show, and you can also listen to it as a podcast on Apple iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, wherever it is that you take in your podcasts. We are there. So hope you found this episode helpful. Share it if you'd like with somebody in your world, use that social networking and give that information out to the world, because you never know who will benefit from it. And thank you for everyone that submitted questions and suggestions. It is called That Expert Show, where you help run the show.